the NBA commissioner just had to publicly apologize for something he said about Caitlin Clark. And what he said has the entire basketball world losing their minds right now. Caitlin Clark has been the biggest story in women's basketball for the past year. She's breaking records, selling out arenas, and bringing millions of new fans to the WNBA. But behind all that success, there's been tension brewing. And it just exploded in the worst way possible when Adam Silver opened his mouth. This isn't just about one comment. This is about respect, politics, and the future of women's basketball. So what exactly did Adam Silver say that got everyone so fired up? During a recent interview, Silver was asked about the situation with Caitlin Clark and some of the controversies surrounding her rookie season in the WNBA. And instead of handling it carefully, he basically downplayed the whole thing. He made it sound like the issues Clark was facing weren't that big of a deal. Like the physical play against her was normal. Like the criticism she was getting from other players was just part of being a rookie. But here's the problem. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that what Caitlin Clark went through this season was not normal. This wasn't just typical rookie hazing. We're talking about players going out of their way to target her on the court. We're talking about cheap shots that went beyond competitive basketball. We're talking about veterans in the league making dismissive comments about her in the media. And through it all, the league didn't really step up to protect their biggest star. So when Adam Silver comes out and acts like everything was fine, people notice. Fans noticed, players noticed, and they were not happy about it. The reaction on social media was immediate and brutal. Basketball fans from all over started calling out Silver for being tone deaf. They pointed out that Caitlin Clark is the reason WNBA ratings went up this year. She's the reason games were selling out. She's the reason major sponsors were suddenly interested in women's basketball again. And yet here's the NBA commissioner acting like the problems she faced weren't worth addressing. But it gets worse. Because right around the same time, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert made her own comments that added fuel to the fire. Engelbert basically said that Caitlin Clark should be grateful for the platform the WNBA gave her. Let that sink in for a second. The commissioner of the league told their biggest star to be grateful. Not the other way around. Not the league being grateful for what Clark has done for them. But Clark needed to show gratitude. The audacity of that statement is wild when you look at the numbers. Before Caitlin Clark came into the league, WNBA games were averaging around 300,000 viewers on a good night. After Clark joined, games she played in were pulling over 2 million viewers. Merchandise sales went through the roof. Ticket prices skyrocketed. The Indiana Fever went from being one of the least watched teams in the league to having every single one of their games nationally televised. Let's break down exactly what happened this season to understand why Silver's comments hit such a nerve. From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, she became a target. And I'm not talking about defenders playing tough defense. I'm talking about players taking shots at her that had nothing to do with basketball. There was the infamous incident where Chennedy Carter hip-checked Clark to the ground in a game. It wasn't a basketball play. It was just straight-up assault on the court. And after the game, Carter's teammate Angel Reese liked social media posts celebrating the hit. That's the kind of environment Clark was dealing with. Then you had Dijonai Carrington poking Clark in the eye during a playoff game. Again, not a basketball play, just unnecessary contact that could have seriously injured someone. And the worst part was how some people in the league reacted to these incidents. Instead of condemning the behavior, some players and even some media members defended it. They said Clark needed to toughen up. They said this was just physical basketball. They said she was getting special treatment by complaining about it. But let's be real. If any other star player in any other league were getting treated like this, there would be consequences. Can you imagine if someone in the NBA kept taking cheap shots at LeBron James or Stephen Curry? The league would come down hard on that player immediately. But with Caitlin Clark, the WNBA seemed content to let it slide. They'd issue weak statements about player safety, but nothing really changed, and it wasn't just the physical stuff. The verbal attacks were constant too. You had players making snide comments about Clark in interviews. You had people questioning whether she deserved all the attention she was getting. You had this weird resentment building because a white player was suddenly the face of a league that had been predominantly black. That racial dynamic made everything more complicated. Because on one hand, Caitlin Clark never asked for any of this. She just wanted to play basketball and be great at it. But on the other hand, she was benefiting from systems of privilege that other players felt they never had access to. Media coverage that they never received. Sponsorship deals that they never got offered. recognition that they felt they earned but never received. So you had this perfect storm of jealousy, resentment, legitimate grievances about inequality, and good old-fashioned competitiveness all mixed together. And Caitlin Clark was right in the middle of it. Throughout all of this, the league's response was pathetic. They could have gotten ahead of the situation early on. They could have made it clear that while competitive play was encouraged, targeting specific players with dangerous plays would not be tolerated. They could have facilitated conversations about the racial dynamics at play. They could have done literally anything to make the situation better. Instead, they did nothing. And when Adam Silver was finally asked about it, his response basically validated that do-nothing approach. He acted like Clark was just experiencing normal rookie challenges. He downplayed the significance of what was happening. And in doing so, he sent a message to everyone watching that the league didn't really care about protecting their stars. That's when things reached a breaking point. The backlash against Silver's comments was so intense and so immediate that he couldn't ignore it. Fans were threatening to boycott NBA games. Major media outlets were running stories about how out of touch Silver was with what was actually happening in women's basketball. Even some NBA players started speaking out, saying Silver needed to do better, and then came the apology. Adam Silver released a statement saying he regretted his previous comments and wanted to clarify his position. He acknowledged that Caitlin Clark had faced unique challenges during her rookie season. He praised her impact on the game and her importance to the future of women's basketball. He said the league needed to do more to support all of its players, including its biggest stars. On the surface, it seemed like a genuine apology. But a lot of people weren't buying it. Because here's the thing about apologies that only come after massive public backlash. They don't feel sincere. They feel calculated. They feel like damage control. And that's exactly what this was. Silver didn't apologize because he genuinely realized he was wrong. He apologized because the controversy was becoming a problem for the league's image. The WNBA is trying to capitalize on this moment of increased interest in women's basketball. They're negotiating new TV deals. They're trying to attract more sponsors. They're attempting to expand the league. And having their biggest star feel unsupported by league leadership is terrible for business. So Silver did what any executive would do in that situation. He walked back his comments, said the right things, and hoped the controversy would blow over. But the damage was already done. Because everyone now knows that when push came to shove, the league's first instinct wasn't to protect Caitlin Clark. Their first instinct was to minimize what she was going through. This whole situation reveals something important about where women's basketball is right now. The sport is at a crossroads. On one side, you have this incredible momentum building. More people are watching than ever before. More young girls are getting inspired to play. More resources are flowing into the women's game. And a huge part of that growth is directly because of Caitlin Clark. But on the other side, you have these internal tensions that threaten to derail everything. You have established players who feel overlooked. You have legitimate conversations about race and privilege that need to happen. You have a league leadership that seems unsure how to navigate any of it. And you have fans who are getting frustrated watching the drama overshadow the actual basketball. The Adam Silver apology is significant because it shows that the people in charge are finally starting to realize they can't ignore these issues anymore. They can't pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. They can't keep dismissing valid concerns just because addressing them would be uncomfortable. But an apology is just words. What matters now is what happens next. Will the league actually implement better protections for players facing targeted harassment on the court? Will they create space for honest conversations about the racial dynamics in women's basketball? Will they stand behind their stars when those stars need support? Or will this apology just be another empty gesture that changes nothing? The answer to those questions will determine whether the WNBA can actually capitalize on this moment of growth or whether the internal conflicts will tear apart the momentum they've built. Because right now, Caitlin Clark is still the biggest thing happening in women's basketball. She's still selling tickets and driving ratings and bringing new fans to the sport. But if the league keeps failing to support her, eventually she might decide the hassle isn't worth it. And if that happens, the WNBA will have blown the best opportunity they've ever had. This controversy also sets a precedent for how the league will handle future stars, because Caitlin Clark won't be the last player to generate this kind of attention. There will be others who capture the public imagination and drive interest in the sport. And those future stars will be watching how Clark was treated. They'll be paying attention to whether the league protected her or left her to fend for herself. And that will influence their decisions about how much they invest in promoting the WNBA versus focusing on other opportunities. Adam Silver's apology matters because it's acknowledgement that mistakes were made. But acknowledgement without action is meaningless. The real test comes in the next season when new controversies inevitably arise. Will the league handle them better? Will they learn from what happened with Caitlin Clark? Or will we be right back here having the same conversations about league leadership failing their players? If you want to see how this story develops, subscribe because this situation is far from over.